Imagine it's the middle of the night, 40,000 years ago. You're inside a small cave, curled between 8 other people, close enough that you can feel every breath, every shift, every small movement. The fire has burned down to embers. Outside, the wind is quiet. And then it starts, a loud, wet, rattling snore from the man sleeping 2 bodies over from you. Everyone freezes. Because that sound, a sound you'd laugh about today, is doing something terrible right now. It's traveling out of the cave. It's echoing off the rocks. And somewhere within a mile of you, a leopard just tilted its head and started listening. For most of human history, snoring wasn't an annoyance. It was a survival threat. Today, when someone snores, you elbow them, put in earplugs, or roll them onto their side. Maybe you make a joke about it in the morning. It's mildly annoying, occasionally funny, and almost never dangerous. But that same rattling sound, coming out of that same anatomy, meant something completely different 50,000 years ago. It could get someone killed. It could get everyone killed. And what ancient humans actually did about it is one of the strangest and most overlooked stories in our evolutionary history. Because snoring did 3 specific things to an ancient human group, and all 3 were dangerous. The first one is predator attraction. Every large cat on Earth hunts by sound, and a slow, rhythmic, low-frequency sound is exactly what a hunting leopard, hyena, or lion tunes into. It signals a sleeping, unaware, motionless target. It's the closest thing to a dinner bell that any prey animal can accidentally ring. Excavations at sites like Swartkrans in South Africa have found early human skulls with puncture marks matching leopard canines. And the fossil record suggests big cats regularly killed our ancestors as they slept. The second one is hostile groups. Ancient humans didn't just have to worry about animals. They had to worry about other humans. Neighboring bands raided each other for territory, mates, and resources. And one of the most reliable ways to find a sleeping camp at night was to follow the sound. A single snore could give away the exact location of 10 people from 300 meters away. And the third one, the one nobody talks about, is the babies. Ancient camps had infants and small children who woke instantly at loud sounds. A snoring adult meant a crying child, and a crying child meant less sleep for the whole group, which meant slower hunting, worse decisions, and higher mortality the next day. Snoring wasn't just a night problem. It bled into everything. To understand what they did about it, you have to understand why humans snore at all. Snoring happens when the soft tissue at the back of your throat, mostly the soft palate and the uvula, vibrates as air passes over it during sleep. When you're awake, the muscles in your throat hold everything taut. When you fall into deep sleep, those muscles relax. If your airway is narrow or your tongue falls back or your nasal passages are blocked, the air has to squeeze past those loose tissues, and they flutter. That fluttering is the sound. And here's the strange thing. Humans snore more than almost any other mammal. Great apes snore, but not as often. Most wild animals sleep with their airway naturally clear. So why are we so bad at this? The answer might be one of the oldest evolutionary trade-offs in our lineage. Around 300,000 years ago, the human throat began to reshape itself for speech. The larynx dropped lower in the neck. The soft palate lengthened. The tongue got more flexible. All of that made language possible, but it also created a longer, more collapsible airway. In effect, we traded quiet sleep for the ability to speak. Neanderthals, who diverged from us hundreds of thousands of years earlier, had wider nasal passages and a slightly different airway geometry. Some paleoanthropologists have argued that they may have snored significantly less than we do. If that's true, and it's still debated, then modern humans were, from the very beginning, the noisiest sleepers our lineage had ever produced. And that noise had consequences. Ancient humans developed several ways to deal with this, and most of them are still with us today, just repackaged. The first was sleep position. Almost every hunter-gatherer group ever studied has a strong preference for side sleeping, often enforced by the physical constraints of the sleeping space itself. In tight quarters, everyone slept on their side to fit, and sleeping on your side is the single most effective way to reduce snoring, because it keeps the tongue from falling back into the throat. This wasn't a hack. This was the default position for the entire species, until modern beds gave people space to sleep on their backs. The second was fire smoke. This one is counterintuitive, but the smoke from a controlled hearth fire acted as a mild, natural decongestant for the people sleeping around it. It thinned mucus, opened nasal passages, and reduced the swelling that causes airway blockage. Some ethnographic studies of modern hunter-gatherer groups have noted that respiratory infections and snoring both drop noticeably around sleeping fires, even accounting for the negatives of smoke exposure. It wasn't perfect medicine, but it worked. The third was physical separation. Ethnographies of groups like the Hadza in Tanzania and the Jew/Hoansi in the Kalahari have documented that chronic loud snorers were often given a sleeping spot slightly apart from the group, closer to the outside of the shelter or in a separate corner. This wasn't cruel, it was practical. One person a little further from the group meant a lot more sleep for everyone else, and better sleep meant a better chance of surviving the next day's hunt. And the fourth was propping. In some archaeological sites, sleeping surfaces show angled construction, one end raised with stones or packed earth, so the head lay higher than the body. This reduces snoring dramatically by using gravity to keep the airway open. At sites like Sibutu Cave in South Africa, the same shelter where 77,000-year-old bedding was found, some sleeping areas appear to have been deliberately banked. It's suggestive, not conclusive, but the shape is unmistakable. But here's where it gets really interesting, because dealing with snoring wasn't just about muffling one loud sleeper, it was tied to something much bigger, the way ancient humans slept as a whole. In 1966, an American sleep researcher named Frederick Snyder proposed what he called the sentinel hypothesis. His idea was that human sleep evolved to be broken up into stages of different depth, light sleep, deep sleep, REM, precisely so that in any group of people, at any given moment of the night, at least one person would be in a lighter stage and functionally alert. It was a rotating watch built into our biology. For decades, this was just a theory. Then, in 2017, an anthropologist named David Sampson tested it directly. He and his team spent weeks recording sleep patterns in a Hadza community in Tanzania using motion sensors on multiple sleepers at once. And what they found was startling. Out of more than 220 hours of observation, there was only 18 minutes total during which every single member of the group was asleep at the same time. The rest of the time, someone was always partially awake, always listening, always aware. That completely reframes snoring. A snorer wasn't just annoying. A snorer was interrupting the group's silent, biological alarm system. The people who were lightly sleeping and listening for danger were being flooded by useless noise from their own group. In that context, learning to manage snoring wasn't just about comfort. It was about protecting the collective vigilance that kept everyone alive. Which leads to something darker. If snoring genuinely threatened group survival, then chronic snorers paid a social cost. And there's some indirect evidence for this in the archaeological record. Ancient human remains frequently show healed nasal fractures. Fighting was common. Broken noses left behind deviated septums, and a deviated septum is one of the most reliable causes of severe adult snoring. That means every serious ancient fighter was probably a serious ancient snorer for the rest of his life. Some anthropologists have speculated that the constant physical injuries in male hunter-gatherer populations may have created a specific subgroup of unavoidably loud sleepers who were reluctantly tolerated because of their value in other roles: hunting, defense, tool-making. And in modern hunter-gatherer societies, ethnographers have recorded a small but consistent pattern of chronic snorers becoming targets of low-level social exclusion. They sleep alone more often. They get less physical intimacy. In some groups, they're gently mocked in daytime conversation. It's not cruelty. It's the residue of 40,000 years of a species that quietly could not afford loud sleepers. Now, here's the part nobody talks about. Snoring wasn't always bad. Sometimes it was actually protective, because a snoring group sounds like a group of large mammals, not sleeping prey, but a coordinated collective presence. Predators that would readily approach a single silent sleeper often hesitated in front of a snoring cluster of 10 adults, because the sound carried a different signal. This is a lot of animals in one place, and if any of them wake up before I strike, I'm outnumbered. Some field biologists studying primates have observed the same effect with sleeping baboon troops. A loud, collectively noisy group is often left alone by leopards that would eagerly attack a solitary, quiet one. Ancient humans probably benefited from the same acoustic camouflage. The snorer that puts you at risk from one predator was at the same time discouraging a different one. The system was noisy, imperfect, and dangerous. But it wasn't only bad. So what did ancient humans do about snoring? Everything they could. They slept on their sides because there was no room to sleep on their backs. They kept fires going that thinned the air in their throats. They pushed the loudest sleepers to the edge of the group and lived with the consequences. They developed a biology of staggered sleep so that even when someone was snoring, someone else was listening. They tolerated their fighters and their broken noses because those men were worth more than they cost. And they survived, night after night, in a world where the quietest sleepers had the best chance of waking up. The strange truth is that you snore today because your ancestors survived despite snoring. Every rattling breath in every bedroom on Earth is the leftover echo of an anatomy shaped for speech, in a species that decided being able to talk was worth being loud at night. Snoring isn't a defect, it's a receipt. It's the sound of a trade our ancestors made 300,000 years ago, still being paid every single night.